There's a moment, silent, almost invisible, when a civilization dies long before anyone notices, not with fire, not with war, but with applause. Because one day, without warning, the crowd stops admiring those who think and begins worshipping those who don't. Civilization has always had its fools, but it never crowned them. It never placed them at the center of public life. It never mistook noise for wisdom. Something shifted, something deep, something deliberate. Today, incompetence doesn't just survive. It reigns. It trends. It gets sponsored. And the terrifying question isn't why idiots exist. They always have. The real question is why you were conditioned to follow them, to trust them, to defend them with the same passion your ancestors reserved for philosophers, scientists, and visionaries. No one wakes up thinking, I want to be led by the blind. No child dreams of imitating the mediocre. No human being naturally gravitates toward the shallow. This is learned, manufactured, installed. A slow, silent architecture that shapes perception until the absurd becomes normal, the degrading becomes aspirational, and stupidity becomes indistinguishable from authenticity. You are told that simplicity is always noble, that complexity is arrogance, that anything requiring effort is oppression, that anything requiring thought is elitism, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, your inner compass bends. You begin to prefer what is easy, not what is true, what is loud, not what is wise, what is familiar, not what is real. This is how the idiot rises. Not because he is strong, but because you were trained to lower your standards until even his incompetence feels comforting. You are encouraged to applaud the obvious, to celebrate the banal, to romanticize fragility, to confuse emotional noise with depth. And every time you do this, a part of you disappears. The part that still remembers what it feels like to demand more of yourself, to stretch beyond the surface, to think deeply even when it hurts. The modern world discovered a brutal truth. The easiest population to control is not the ignorant, it is the comfortably shallow. People who avoid discomfort, people who fear reflection, people who mistake feeling good for being right. It is in this environment that idiocy transforms into authority. Not by merit, not by achievement, but by design. You weren't simply surrounded by stupidity, you were groomed to admire it, to equate depth with unnecessary suffering, to reject anything that forces you to confront your own unrealized potential. And one day, without noticing, you join the crowd that claps for its own diminishment. The terrifying part isn't that idiots rose to power. History has seen worse. The terrifying part is how gently, how subtly, how quietly you were guided to hand them the crown. The mind loves shortcuts. The ego loves validation. The system loves compliance. And the idiot is the perfect fusion of all three. He doesn't challenge you. He doesn't make you grow. He doesn't disturb your illusions. He gives you the feeling of having thought without ever requiring the effort of thinking. This is the trade. This is the seduction. This is the anesthesia. And the moment you accept it, something irreversible begins. Not in the world outside you, but in the world within. Because the first step toward collective collapse is always the same. When a society stops elevating the best it has and starts celebrating the worst it tolerates. And we crossed that line the day idiots became kings. No one is born admiring the shallow. No child holds a dream of becoming average. Mediocrity is not instinct. It is training. A long, slow conditioning that begins before you can speak and continues until you can no longer imagine a world without it. You are taught to fear depth long before you ever encounter it. You are rewarded for repeating answers, not discovering them. You are praised for obedience, not curiosity. You are shaped to avoid anything that stretches your mind beyond comfort. And the shaping begins early. School doesn't teach you to think, it teaches you to memorize. Memorization is predictable, controllable, safe. Thinking is dangerous. Thinking disrupts. Thinking creates people who can't be managed through fear or approval. Entertainment does not challenge you, it soothes you. It replaces reflection with reaction, nuance with noise, complexity with instant gratification. It feeds your senses until your mind forgets how to feed itself. Social platforms don't train you to understand, They train you to respond, not slowly, not thoughtfully, but instantly. With likes, with outrage, with tribal identification, with emotional reflexes disguised as opinions. And all of this, every part of this ecosystem works toward one goal, to make effort feel like suffering. The human brain seeks efficiency. It hates burning calories on uncertainty, on contradiction, on ideas that force it to reorganize itself. So when society offers shortcuts masquerading as wisdom, the mind accepts them with relief. Why wrestle with nuance when you can choose a slogan? Why question your beliefs when someone offers ready-made certainty? Why endure cognitive discomfort when a confident fool tells you everything you want to hear? The idiot becomes attractive not because he is insightful, but because he is easy. He offers answers pre-chewed, pre-simplified, pre-approved by a culture terrified of thinking. He speaks in absolutes because absolutes feel safe. He shouts because shouting saves you from the burden of listening deeply. He replaces your intellectual hunger with a sugar rush of false clarity. And slowly, your mental palate adapts. Depth starts tasting bitter. Effort feels like oppression. Complexity becomes noise. You begin seeking the easiest version of everything, the simplest explanation, the shortest summary, the most digestible idea. You choose speed over accuracy, emotion over truth, convenience over understanding. And every time you choose that shortcut, the shortcut strengthens. Neural pathways thicken, attention span shrinks, discomfort tolerance collapses. Until one day, without noticing, your mind rejects anything that demands more than a moment of effort. You don't think less because you lack the ability. You think less because you have been trained to interpret thinking as pain. This is the architecture, this is the conditioning. A society that applauds what reduces. A culture that celebrates what distracts. An algorithm that rewards what provokes reaction, not reflection. An education system that values conformity over consciousness. And you grow up inside this environment, believing it is normal. Believing that quick answers are better than true ones. Believing that those who speak loudly must know something you don't. Believing that curiosity is a flaw and certainty is virtue. This is how the worship of mediocrity is built, not through force. Through repetition, through small nudges, through 1,000 subtle cues teaching you that the surface is safe and the depths are dangerous. And when you internalize that lesson, everything shifts. Your standards collapse, your expectations shrink, your tolerance for intellectual challenge evaporates. You begin choosing leaders not for their wisdom, but for their simplicity. And the idiot steps forward, not as an exception, as the natural consequence of your training. When thinking feels like suffering, the one who spares you from thinking becomes your hero. When complexity feels like threat, the one who reduces everything to emotional slogans becomes your authority. When effort feels like oppression, the one who validates your avoidance becomes your savior. This is how a civilization quietly replaces excellence with performance, mastery with confidence, truth with noise. Not because people lost the ability to think, but because they were conditioned to believe that thinking is no longer worth the effort. There is a moment when everything begins to make sense. Not when you look at society as a culture, but when you look at it as a market. Because the truth is simple. Ignorance is profitable, and clarity is not. A mind that thinks for itself buys less, fears less, needs less. A mind that depends on external validation consumes endlessly. One is autonomous, the other is a customer. And modern civilization has built an economy around the second. You are not living in an age that accidentally rewards stupidity. You are living in a world where stupidity has become a strategic asset. A clear mind is stable, a confused mind is profitable, a fragile mind is bankable. The emotional industries, the gurus, the pseudo-experts, the content factories have all discovered the same truth. A person who understands reality does not need fantasies packaged as solutions. But a person who is insecure, overwhelmed, and mentally untrained becomes a perpetual consumer. And in this marketplace, the idiot isn't just tolerated, he is necessary. He is the perfect product. He offers the comfort of certainty without the cost of understanding. He sells confidence without competence. He delivers emotional sugar without nutritional value, and people devour it because it goes down easily. No chewing required. This is not conspiracy, this is capitalism. The algorithm is not malicious, it is indifferent. It doesn't care what elevates you, it only cares what keeps you engaged. And what keeps you engaged is not depth, nuance, or slow reflection. It is intensity, it is speed, it is emotional electricity, anger, shock, tribal belonging, instant validation. The idiot excels at generating all of these because he does not need to build arguments. He only needs to trigger reactions. He doesn't need to know. He only needs to provoke. He doesn't need substance. He only needs performance. He doesn't need truth. He only needs certainty delivered with enough volume to drown out doubt. And every time he does this, the system rewards him. More clicks, more shares, more sponsorships, more platforms fighting for his face. Not because he is valuable, but because he is useful. Useful for engagement, useful for distraction, useful for keeping a population stimulated enough to consume, but not conscious enough to question. Dietrich Bonhoeffer warned that stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice, because malice can be confronted, but stupidity becomes a shield people hide behind willingly, and the market knows this. A stupid consumer does not ask for evidence. A stupid consumer does not demand quality. A stupid consumer does not recognize manipulation. He just keeps buying. So the system does not improve the product. It lowers the standard of the consumer. And how do you lower this standard? By bombarding the mind with shallow figures who normalize mediocrity, reward impulsivity, and perform confidence without competence. Each time you applaud one of them, your threshold drops, your expectations shrink, your sensitivity to real substance dulls. Soon, empty rhetoric feels like insight, emotional noise feels like truth, simplistic explanations feel like revelations. And while all of this is happening, you don't notice the most important part. Your intellectual weakness is no longer an accident. It is the product being sold. Your confusion is no longer a personal struggle. It is a commodity, a resource, a gold mine. The algorithm feeds you what keeps you docile. Brands feed you what keeps you dependent. Influencers feed you what keeps you emotionally hooked. And the idiot becomes the perfect delivery mechanism for all of it. Not because he enlightens, but because he pacifies. Not because he strengthens, but because he distracts. Not because he frees, but because he keeps you locked in a cycle of emotional consumption that feels like growth but isn't. And the deeper truth emerges. A society addicted to shallow stimulus becomes incapable of real resistance. A population that cannot think critically cannot identify manipulation. A population that cannot identify manipulation cannot defend itself. And a population that cannot defend itself becomes the ideal marketplace. Eternally confused, eternally reactive, eternally consuming. This is the business model. This is the profit. This is the architecture behind your intellectual fragility. You were not simply exposed to stupidity, you were targeted with it, because a mind that sleeps is easier to sell to, and far easier to control. There is a strange moment in history when incompetence stops being a flaw and becomes a style, when ignorance stops disqualifying someone and starts making them relatable, when weakness, confusion, and lack of mastery are rebranded as authenticity. This is the transformation the modern world perfected, turning incompetence into charisma. People no longer seek leaders who know, they seek leaders who feel. Not those who understand the world, but those who can perform emotion convincingly enough to replace understanding. Knowledge has weight, emotion has speed. And in an age addicted to velocity, speed always wins. The idiot discovered this early. He doesn't need to master the subject. He only needs to master the audience's emotional temperature. He doesn't need clarity of thought. He only needs clarity of posture. He doesn't need arguments. He only needs the confidence to deliver his opinions as if they were sacred truths. In a world drowning in self-doubt, confidence becomes a kind of currency, even when it's empty. Excellence intimidates. Precision creates distance. Mastery demands respect, but it also demands effort from both sides. Mediocrity, on the other hand, welcomes everyone. It expands, it embraces, it lets you stay exactly where you are while making you feel seen. And that is why the mediocre rise, because they represent the one thing the modern ego craves more than truth: comfort. Observe how the performance works. The idiot stumbles through sentences, misuses concepts, misunderstands basic ideas, but does it with unwavering confidence. The audience sees this and thinks, if he can fail and still be celebrated, so can I. If he can be confused and still be heard, so can I. If he can lack discipline and still be admired, maybe I don't need to grow either. His incompetence becomes a permission slip, a psychological hall pass, a quiet invitation into a life where nothing difficult is required. This is the deadly illusion. You're not admiring his authenticity. You're admiring your own escape from responsibility. Every mistake he makes is interpreted as charm. Every confusion becomes relatable. Every shallow statement is reframed as courage. He doesn't have to be right. He only has to appear convinced, and conviction, even without substance, is magnetic to those who doubt everything, including themselves. It's not insight they're following. It's certainty. It's emotional choreography. It's the performance of clarity. Style devours content. Delivery replaces depth. Charisma replaces competence. Theatrics replace thought. And slowly, the public forgets what real mastery even looks like. They stop recognizing the difference between wisdom and noise, between depth and dramatics, between leadership and performance, because the idiot offers something irresistible: a world without hierarchy of ability, a world where no one is better informed, where no one is more disciplined, where no one knows more, where effort is unnecessary and the highest achievement is simply being loudly yourself. This is why the idiot becomes an idol, not despite his lack of mastery, but because of it. He represents the fantasy of existing without having to grow, without having to change, without having to confront the weight of your own unrealized potential. He allows people to worship their own stagnation. And underneath all of this, something even more unsettling occurs. Your perception of competence begins to decay. You start mistaking emotional noise for insight. You start believing loudness equals leadership. You start trusting those who make you feel, not those who make you think. And the more the incompetent are celebrated, the more the competent become invisible. Not because they disappeared, but because the crowd lost the ability to recognize them. In a civilization where the shallow rise to the top and the thoughtful sink beneath the surface, charisma becomes the new intelligence. Noise becomes the new truth. Performance becomes the new authority. And incompetence becomes the new crown. There is a cost to living in a world ruled by the shallow, and it is far greater than you think. It is not just your attention they take. It is not just your standards. It is your identity. Because the mind has a quiet, terrifying habit. It becomes what it repeatedly consumes. You believe you choose who influences you, but repetition chooses for you. Exposure shapes you long before intention does. And every shallow behavior you witness, every posture, every phrase, every emotional reflex, slides into you unnoticed. Modern society surrounds you with figures chosen not for their wisdom, but for their immediacy. The most impulsive voices rise first. The loudest personalities float to the top. The most superficial are placed right in front of your eyes every time you open a screen. And what the eyes see often enough, the self eventually imitates. You don't copy the best models available. You copy the most visible, the most repeated, the most aggressively present. This is how the idiot begins conquering you, not through persuasion, but through proximity. You start repeating sentences you don't fully understand. You adopt gestures that aren't yours. You internalize values you never consciously chose. You defend ideas you never examined. You express emotions that were programmed into you by constant exposure. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just small behaviors absorbed piece by piece, until your personality becomes a mosaic built from the worst fragments of the culture around you. Nietzsche once said that man is a rope stretched between the animal and the superhuman, a rope over an abyss. Growth requires tension. Elevation requires strain. Becoming more demands resisting gravity. Modern society has cut this rope. Now there is no tension, no ascent, no effort, only free fall. a slow, comfortable descent toward the lowest denominator, sold as liberation. You don't rise by accident, but you fall without noticing. Every time mediocrity is rewarded publicly, your brain takes note. Every time effort is mocked, your standards erode. Every time complexity is dismissed as elitism, your tolerance for depth shrinks. Every time a shallow figure is celebrated, your own subconscious updates its definition of normal. And little by little, the inner architecture collapses. You stop questioning, you stop investigating, you stop demanding more from yourself. You begin prioritizing what is simple, even when it is wrong. You begin avoiding what is challenging, even when it is true. And the worst part is this: you don't notice the transformation. You believe you are simply being yourself, when in reality, you are being everyone you unconsciously copied. The self becomes a collage, a patchwork of borrowed traits, second-hand opinions, emotional shortcuts picked up from strangers performing their own theatrical ignorance. Your identity is no longer crafted by intention, but by exposure. And soon the question you should fear most becomes impossible to answer. Who would you be if you removed everything you copied from the mediocre? This question terrifies because it exposes the truth that most people don't actually have a self. They have a collection of reactions shaped by whatever the algorithm fed them. They have a personality built from contagious behaviors. They have beliefs inherited from influences they'll never meet. They have emotions calibrated by the shallowest examples available. This is not weakness, it is design. A population that builds its identity from noise will never develop the structure required to resist manipulation. A self made of fragments can be rearranged at will. A self made of imitation can be directed effortlessly. A self built without effort can be dismantled without struggle. And if this sounds abstract, look closely at your own life. How many of your jokes are yours? How many of your opinions are yours? How many of your habits are truly chosen? How many of your reactions belong to you? And how many are borrowed from people you don't even respect? This is the silent takeover, not of your freedom, of your identity. The idiot doesn't just dull your mind, he rewrites it. He becomes the blueprint from which your unconscious copies. And every time you consume him, you allow him to carve another small piece out of who you could have been, until one day you wake up not as yourself, but as a collage of everything shallow you allowed in. There is a lie at the center of modern life, a lie so seductive, so comforting, that people cling to it even as it destroys them. The lie is this: that freedom means living without weight, without responsibility, without discipline, without the burden of thinking. The idiot embodies this lie perfectly. He does not question himself. He does not restrain himself. He does not carry the pain of introspection, the humility of learning, or the discomfort of growth. He embraces every impulse as if it were truth. He mistakes emotion for insight. He confuses chaos with authenticity. And society applauds him because he represents the fantasy every exhausted, overwhelmed mind secretly craves: a life without inner tension. A life where you do not need to become anything higher than you already are. A life where nothing is demanded of you. A life where the weight of depth, maturity, and coherence simply vanishes. This is why the shallow rise. This is why they are elevated to symbols. They are the living embodiment of surrender disguised as liberation. But look closer. Look beneath the performance. Look beneath the emotional theatrics and the loud certainty. There is no freedom there. There is only collapse. The idiot has not transcended discipline. He has fled from it. He has not escaped the burden of self-awareness. He has buried it. He has not conquered his limitations. He has simply accepted them as destiny. He is not free. He is ruled by every impulse, every fear, every insecurity he refuses to confront. He is a slave to everything inside him he has never had the courage to face. And when society celebrates him, it is not celebrating liberation, it is celebrating permission. Permission to give up on yourself. Permission to stop growing. Permission to live without standards, without coherence, without responsibility. Permission to stay asleep. Bonhoeffer understood this when he wrote that stupidity is not an intellectual defect, but a moral choice, a refusal to confront the discomfort required to grow. a voluntary blindness, a quiet surrender to the easiest path, and modern culture has turned that surrender into a lifestyle. Discipline is framed as repression, effort as suffering, reflection as overthinking, consistency as rigidity, wisdom as arrogance. Meanwhile, impulsivity is celebrated as honesty, ignorance as authenticity, shallow rebellion as courage, emotional volatility as truth, and giving up on oneself as self-acceptance. But understand this clearly. The freedom the idiot represents is not freedom. It is the absence of self-mastery, the absence of direction, the absence of inner structure. It is not liberation, it is disintegration. And a society that chooses disintegration eventually forgets how to stand. It loses its spine, it loses its center, it loses the capacity to hold anything heavy, meaningful, or real. This is why everything begins to feel fragile. People break easily, beliefs crumble quickly, convictions dissolve under the slightest pressure, identities fracture at the smallest challenge. Human beings were not built to live without inner weight, without responsibility, without standards, without the tension that stretches them upward. Nietzsche warned of this when he described man as a rope over an abyss. Tension is not suffering, it is elevation. Effort is not oppression, it is the path to becoming something higher. But modern society despises tension. It wants the rope cut, it wants the abyss covered, it wants the climb replaced with a slide. And the idiot becomes the symbol of this new gospel. Falling downward is easier than rising upward. So call the fall freedom. Call it authenticity. Call it self-love. Call it liberation. Just don't call it what it truly is: surrender. A civilization that worships this form of freedom is a civilization rehearsing its own funeral, not with despair, but with celebration, with confetti, with applause, with influencers preaching the gospel of effortless living to an audience desperate to believe that effort is optional. This is the apex of the phenomenon, a society that chooses unconsciousness, defends it, glorifies it, and calls it enlightenment. And in that moment, something irreversible begins. Not the death of intelligence, but the death of will. The will to rise, the will to grow, the will to confront the weight of becoming. A world that worships the idiot is not just misled, it is abandoning itself. There is a moment, quiet, personal, unmistakable, when the entire architecture finally reveals itself. Not out there in society, but in you. A moment when you realize the idiot was never the true problem. He was only the symbol, the distraction, the mask placed over something far more uncomfortable. Your willingness to applaud what diminishes you. Because every shallow figure elevated, every mediocre voice celebrated, every confident fool admired, all of it required your participation, your silence, your lowered standards, your desire for comfort over clarity. The rise of the idiot is a mirror, not a mystery, a reflection of how many people would rather feel good than become good, how many would rather be comforted than awakened, how many would rather surrender than grow. And the moment you see this, the entire illusion cracks. You begin noticing every place where you traded effort for ease, every time you laughed at depth because it felt threatening, every moment you dismissed complexity because it demanded something of you. Every situation where you admired someone, not because they were wise, but because they made you feel safe in your own stagnation. You start seeing the truth behind the performances, the influences, the emotional theatrics. They were never leading you. They were following you, mirroring your avoidance, amplifying your fear of responsibility, validating your desire to stay exactly as you are. The idiot thrives because he represents the version of yourself you are most tempted to become. The one who doesn't think, doesn't question, doesn't grow. And that is why confronting him feels like confronting your own shadow. But here is the part no one wants to face. You can't dismantle the idiot out there until you dismantle the one inside you. The one who avoids discomfort, the one who seeks shortcuts, the one who prefers emotional noise to quiet reflection, the one who hides behind opinions instead of building understanding, the one who calls laziness intuition and impulsivity authenticity. This is where real freedom begins, not in rejecting society, but in refusing to be shaped by its lowest standards. You cannot control the algorithms. You cannot control the market. You cannot control who rises or falls in the public square. But you can control the kingdom within your own mind. You can refuse to hand its throne to the shallowest parts of yourself. You can reclaim the inner tension that lifts you upward instead of surrendering to the downward pull disguised as liberation. And when you do this, something remarkable happens. You stop being programmable. You stop being predictable. You stop being the ideal consumer the system was designed to manufacture. You become someone the modern world finds inconvenient, because a person who thinks is a person who cannot be easily controlled. And this brings you back to the beginning, to the question hidden beneath the entire phenomenon. Why did we allow idiots to become kings? Not because they were strong, not because they were wise, but because thinking became too heavy and anesthesia too easy. Because the crown was abandoned long before it was stolen. Because people traded the weight of awareness for the comfort of unconsciousness. But you do not have to continue this pattern. You can choose a different path. A path that begins with a simple decision to think, to grow, to rise. Not louder, not angrier, just higher. And if this message stirred something awake in you, if you felt even a flicker of that forgotten tension inside, declare it. Write in the comments, "I choose to think," not as a slogan, not as a performance, but as a reminder that the throne of your mind belongs to you alone, and you will no longer crown the idiot, either in the world or within yourself. If you're ready to keep rising, subscribe and join this circle of people who refuse to applaud their own defeat. We think here, we grow here, and we rise, despite the world that profits from keeping us asleep. Until the next awakening.